Hi, good morning everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Sorry we're a hair late this morning. Tomato Mania is in full swing, so we're pretty busy, but thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm going to be talking about 5 tips for growing healthy tomatoes and 5 things that kind of help you be successful with growing tomatoes. I know a lot of you are longtime growers, but we also have a lot of new growers this year, which is really exciting. So just kind of knowing the basics will really help you be successful. I think a lot of times people have some expectations that they don't meet and they get, discouraged. And if you kind of can understand the basics, that will really help you have a really successful crop and make you want to do it again next year. So that's kind of the most important thing. So the key things is what you want to do when you're picking your tomato is understand the space you're working with at home. Where are you going to grow that tomato? What's the sun like there? Tomatoes want a lot of sun. So if you're working in a half sun situation or a shady situation, tomatoes are going to be a no-go for you. Understanding how close you are to the ocean, to inland, really helps because you want to understand what your weather is like. If you have a lot of a marine layer, then you'll want to pick a short season tomato. And then how big your space is will also help you determine what kind of tomato you want to pick. So the basic things to know about tomatoes is what an indeterminate and determinate tomato is. A determinate tomato is a bush tomato. It stays smaller, doesn't get really big and vining, and sets all its tomatoes at once. So if you're working in a pot, that's a really great thing. Or if you have a really small space, that's a good thing to do. If you have a lot of space, you're growing in the ground, you have a really good way to stake up your tomato, then you can do an indeterminate tomato. That keeps continually producing tomatoes and gets really big over time. So be prepared for how big it is. A lot of people, I think, get really intimidated once their tomatoes start getting really big and they kind of don't know what to do. So if you know to expect that, then everything will be really good. And then knowing your space. If you're really close to the coast, picking a short season tomato is probably your best idea for being really successful because it's going to set its fruit right away. If you have something that's going to set its fruit and it's going to take a really long time to set its fruit and you live really coastally, then you get hit with mildew problems before your tomatoes come in and all those kind of things. So knowing that number is really important. So when you're looking at your tag, you're looking for determinate versus indeterminate, and you're looking at the number of days to set the tomato. So usually something that's like 65 to 70 is short season, something that's in the 80s is a long season tomato. I live really close to the ocean, so I usually pick the short season tomatoes. Also too, if you're just really impatient, short season tomatoes are really good, especially if you got kids, because they just don't have the patience for waiting for 80 days for a tomato. The other thing that you really want to pay attention to is your watering. A lot of times when people get tomatoes in the beginning, they water like crazy, and then they start slowing down and they water really irregularly, and that causes a lot of blossom and rot problems and a lot of mildew problems. So water your tomatoes in the morning, and you'll want to water consistently. In the beginning, you're trying to get them established, so that's really important. So watering them every other day or so is really great, but as they get bigger, slow down on that water. Tomatoes are very deep rooted, so you want to water for a long time, but you want to let that soil dry out in between. Always water in the morning as well. That's a really important tip too, because tomatoes typically have a lot of mildew problems and we want to stay away from that. The other thing that you really want to think about is fertilizing. So a lot of people will kill their tomatoes with kindness, but you do want to make sure that you are fertilizing your tomato and giving it the nutrients that it needs. That will really help your tomato be healthy, and that will really stop from you having a lot of again, issues with the plant being unhealthy. Just like us, when we're fed well, we take our vitamins, we're usually a lot more successful and our immune systems are great. Same things with tomatoes. The other thing is staking a tomato. That's really super important. This is my all-time favorite way of staking a tomato is with this nice collapsible tomato cage. These are really hardy, heavy duty, and you can keep them year after year after year. And I love that they collapse completely flat, so it makes it really easy for storage. I love the height on this and the fact that it has 4 prongs on the bottom. That's super important. If you get something that has 3 prongs, it tends to be really wobbly and your tomato gets tall and it falls over. and that's the worst. It rips out of the ground. So having something with 4 prongs is really super important as well. And then the last thing is understanding how to plant your tomato. When you're planting your tomato, if you get a tomato and it's in a nice little pot and it has flowers on it, you don't actually want to have the flowers on that right now. You want it to spend all of its energy when you plant it getting established and growing its roots out. It becomes really hard when you have something with a flower on it to pinch those flowers off. I understand that kind of hurts, but pinch those little flowers off and let it get really established. I do that for about a month once I have it planted. I'm just wanting it to get really nice and big, and I'm wanting it to get its energy into putting all of its stuff down into the ground and getting nice and established. Also, you can plant your tomatoes deep. It's one of the only plants you can do that with. So you can always pinch off some of the leaves from the bottom and plant the stem down into the ground. That stem will actually make some more roots. So planting a tomato deep is okay. That's the only plant I'm ever going to tell you to plant deep. Everything else, don't do that. But with a tomato, it really helps it, again, get more roots, get healthier. They're a pretty vigorous rooted, deep rooted plant. So the more roots that you have on your tomato, the better it is. So if you can get all those things accomplished with planting your tomato, you're going to be successful. Don't worry too much. They're not too hard to grow. Don't be discouraged. Pick just a handful and a couple to manage, and then the more you get used to it, the more you learn the tips that work for your yard. Everybody has tons of tomato tips. Come in, ask us questions. We have so many people working here. I hear so much new advice every single year that I've never heard before. So it's really kind of amazing the things that you hear from people. It's a really great way. Also,